Hey, I'm Joe Bob Briggs, drive-in movie critic of Grapevine, Texas, and we're about to descend into the bizarre world of the legendary Ray Dennis Steckler, who never spent more than $38,000 on a movie. Big Ray once said that two of his favorite filmmakers were Ed Wood Jr. In fact, he may be the only director I've ever heard of who actually admires Ed Wood Jr. as an artist, and his second idol was Michelangelo Antonioni. Now, you're thinking, how would it be possible to combine the styles of Ed Wood and Antonioni in a single movie that cost $500 to make? The answer? The Chooper, the movie we're about to watch. Now, I use the original title, The Chooper, not The Chopper, as it's listed in some film guides, and not the later retitle of Blood Shack, because what we're trying to do is get as close to the essence of the artist's original intention as possible. Now, he called it the Chooper. So what is a Chooper? Well, unfortunately, Ray has never told us exactly where he got the name, or if he did, I haven't heard the story. But it kind of reminds me of the Chupacabra. Remember that goat demon thing that was spooking all the Cubans in Miami a few years back? But we know from the movie that the Chooper is an ancient Indian vengeance-seeking demon god that dwells somewhere in the Mojave Desert, where a young Indian boy was once accidentally killed by a nervous homesteader. The house is now 150 years old and still standing, just waiting for a low-budget filmmaker to come along, and everybody who enters therein ends up as a piece of beef jerky, hacked to death with the Chooper's weapon of choice, which seems to be an extremely nasty machete, although I'm not entirely sure about that. I want you to know that we've restored the Chooper with great loving care. We're presenting it in both versions because this movie is perhaps the only film in history that has a director's cut that's 20 minutes shorter than the theatrical version. Steckler had conceived it as a 1-hour horror film, but the distributor said he had to have at least 70 minutes of footage for them to handle it. So Ray's brilliant idea, and here's the Antonioni influence at work, I think. His idea was, okay, let's have all the characters in the movie go to the rodeo. Now, as we all know, extended rodeo footage in a horror film only serves to heighten the awareness of just how surreal this wacky world we live in can be. Now, for those of you who are already Ray Dennis Steckler fans, you know that the Chooper came toward the end of his active career. And, well, I mean, he's still active. He'll always be active, but the market for these ultra-low budgets dried up in the 1970s. So this was one of his last movies that had theatrical distribution, came out in 1971, and it was filmed under one of his pseudonyms, Wolfgang Schmidt. See, he was going for that European thing. He wanted that European feel. And it stars his ex-wife as herself, Carolyn Brandt, as a burned-out horror movie queen who inherits a big desert ranch and decides to go there because, well, it's hard to know exactly why she goes there because the place looks like the end of the earth. It's windy and dusty and bleak and there's nothing there. But Steckler had actually broken up with Carolyn at this point and had recently moved to Las Vegas. So you could call this his wistful melancholy film. Doesn't have the mad, manic energy of such Steckler classics as The Thrill Killers and Rat Finka Boo Boo, not to mention his most famous movie of all, The Incredibly Strange Creatures That Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies. I'm becoming wistful myself just thinking about the incredibly strange creatures that stopped living and became mixed up zombies. Okay, well, I'll be there to guide you through the cinematic subtleties of this underrated Steckler classic, but let's take a look at those official drive-in totals before we get started. We have 6 dead bodies, spike plunging, corpse robbing, constable slicing, multiple dead Indian spirit ninja attacks, 2 fistfights, 3 original songs, including the immortal I'm the Chooper Man, sung by Steckler regular Ron Haydock, who also plays the character of Tim, gratuitous musical chairs with only 1 chair. Now that's a low-budget movie. Gratuitous steer wrestling, gratuitous pony rides, 2x4 foo, nepotism foo, 3 members of Ray's family in the cast, and it's not a big cast. Drive-In Academy Award nominations for Jason Wayne as Daniel, the shirtless geek redneck who takes care of the bloody bodies he finds in the Chooper Shack. Laurel Spring as the first to die, for having the name Laurel Spring. Carolyn Brandt for being the only woman who wears white Nancy Sinatra go-go boots in the desert and gets away with it. Ron Haydock for being the last actor in history to look good in a pork pie hat. And Ray Dennis Steckler for doing things the drive-in way. Let us be reverent as we encounter the Chooper.